the so-called Indochina War did come to an end, which left Vietnam divided between a communist North and an anti-communist South. The military forces of the communist North, the Viet Cong, began to infiltrate the South in ever-increasing numbers.
On the first two nights of the Tet Lunar New Year's, the Viet Cong, violating the truce agreed on for that holiday, struck across the entire length of South Vietnam.
Within 24 hours, Eddie Adams' snapshot of a Viet Cong guerrilla being executed made front pages around the world.
The first time I saw the photo, I was in 11th grade. I was horrified, I guess. That's my dad.
Em nhìn cái ảnh, nói đó là cha em. Cha tôi vẫn đâu có làm gì cũng.
The first time I was shown that picture was in Time magazine by one of my uncles. That's the Viet Cong that kill your family.
The picture of the execution so shocked people that people who hadn't thought about the war suddenly got such a jolt.
An unsettling image that won the 1969 Pulitzer Prize.
Pictures don't tell the whole story. When you look at a photograph, you're looking at 1/500th of a second or 1/250th of a second. And it's a moment. You don't see all sides of it.
Okay. Bon appetit.
Small bowls of fat.
It's nice to have a dinner together, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yes, we haven't eaten together in a long time. I miss coming home to your food.
Yes. Yeah, I remember when I went to grad school, no Asian food. No Asian foods for months.
It's American food.
Bratwurst. I share a lot about my childhood because I think my childhood was so idyllic. I love living in Vietnam.
I would love to visit Vietnam to see where you both grew up.
It's hard because Vietnam now is so different. The Vietnam where I grew up is just a memory.
People from Vietnam used to tell us stories about our grandparents.
They want to make sure that we know what happened during the years of war.
You know, our family has always chosen the path of like just keeping silent on the subject. But now there's a new generation, 2 new generations that come up who knew nothing about the Vietnam War.
I can't imagine moving my whole life. So I'm very grateful that you've given us all the opportunities that we have today.
This is our family when the kids were very young.
For Vietnamese families, extremely important. But for us, it's even more so. We as a family form a perimeter, a fence, to protect ourselves.
Here are my kids. I took this picture. And I think they are the sweetest and cutest things.
When we came over, the experience of being a refugee, being different, and then with the experience of my dad.
This is my dad.
having to deal with the publicity. My dad, I think of him every day. Every day.
Ở Việt Nam quan trọng nhất là cái Tết cổ truyền.
It's a combination of New Year, Thanksgiving, Christmas rolled into one.
Còn nhỏ thì thích nhất là cái ngày Tết, má đi chợ mua những cái thực phẩm ngon nhất.
You get to have an outfit made just for that.
Children receive a lot of lisi, red envelope with new money for good luck and good health. It's a time of renewal.
But that 1968 was not like that.
Every year around it, I start dreaming again of this nightmare. We have this tradition during Tết, on New Year's Day, whoever is the first to enter the house will bring the luck into the house. Usually they would choose a person that will bring good luck, good fortune, good health to the family. They call it Sông Nhà, first to enter the portal of the family. On New Year's Day of 1968, I heard the firecracker outside. I was curious. I just opened the door, walked out, enjoying the views, and then came back in again. And I was the first one to Sông Nhà that year. My father saw that and basically just slapped me in the face. I was 9 years old at that time, and to this day, I still regret it. I still think that I still think that I'm the one who brought bad luck to the family. My father was head of the armor training school, and the military compound where our family was at was attacked.
Suddenly and without warning, the violence of war shattered the peaceful celebration of the Lunar New Year.
The Viet Cong simultaneously attacked just about every major city and town in South Vietnam.
The battle now was for Saigon itself.
As many as 12 North Vietnamese and Viet Cong battalions had taken the city.
We were all awakened by our father and told us to get into a bunker. I was praying to God, please save us. But that didn't happen. I see some bright lights. The next thing is I found myself on the floor, bleeding. I was shot in the head. It pierced through my skull here, and my brother, I can still see his belly was cut open. And he was breathing hard, some of his last breath. And I hid between the sandbags. In the meantime, the Viet Cong, they went through the house, they took out the beers, and they were eating while my mom was laying there, dying. I listened to my mom crying out in pain for almost Seems like eternity. She suffered a lot. I can't erase that out of my memory.
Viet Cong snipers and suicide commandos were holed up inside the embassy compound and firing from surrounding buildings.
Now the Viet Cong have carried the war into the cities, and there seems to be no place to hide from the bombs and the bullets.
Almost predictably, the South Vietnamese reacted to the surprise attacks by arresting anyone who couldn't prove his loyalty to the government.
The first time I saw the photo of my family was in Time magazine.
Government troops were ordered to get as much revenge as they could.
It was shown to me by my uncle. He showed me also the picture of executing one of the Viet Cong.
Government troops had captured the commander of the Viet Cong commando unit.
He told me that that was the Viet Cong that killed my family. And I was thinking in my mind is, how does he know that that's the guy that killed my family?
Chứ thật sự ra tụi tôi cũng không có biết là cha tôi đi cách mạng như vậy. Ba là làm du kích, năm ba 12 tuổi là ba đã làm du kích. Cũng vì nước nên ba chọn theo mấy chú để mà xuống đường. Ba em vô gia đình để giết cái gia đình anh thì em xin thưa rằng là tuy em không biết gì thật nhưng mà em xin thưa với anh rằng là không có chuyện đó đâu. Em bảo đảm với anh không phải Việt Cộng vô đó giết đâu.
Cái quan điểm của anh như thế nào? Không đủ thời gian nào mà để ba để đi giết một cái gia đình này rồi lại đi đánh một cái nơi này. Không có thời gian.
Đúng, tụi em là những đứa con bị mất cha. Mà biết cái người giết cha của mình là ai nữa.
In Washington today, an echo of the Vietnam War. The U.S. government wants to deport a refugee, General Nguyen Ngoc Loan, once chief of the National Police of South Vietnam. He is remembered for having shot and killed a man in the streets of Saigon. The Immigration Service calls that moral turpitude and wants him out.
Today, the former general runs a small restaurant in Burke, Virginia, just outside of Washington. And now the government wants to deport him.
You know, I probably had the same reaction that any normal person would have, which is horror. But then, you know, I know my dad. He's somebody who's extremely generous and kind, somebody who put their family first and put their country first. When I think of my dad, I think of all the pictures showing his love for his grandchildren. And here he is holding my son. When I first heard about it, it was everywhere. It was in the news. It was discussed in school. The kids in the class had that horrified look that what kind of a person is your dad?
It's beautiful. Walking through this is really zen as a child. That's probably one of my happiest time in Vietnam. Trees all around you make you forget about all the life trouble. I used to just lie down like this, looking up and looking at the cloud floating by and just imagine that I'm one of the clouds and just daydreaming all day long. I feel connected. I feel like I'm part of the surrounding that just make me happy. Being here like this is just bring back a lot of the good memory that I had. I try to recall the good time with my mom, my dad, my family in Vietnam. It's just override with all of these painful memories. The happier time seemed to fade faster. I don't remember what my brothers and sisters like, what my dad or my mom smell like, their voice. To think about them in a peaceful way, it's just almost impossible. What I recall was what happened to them. It's just happened yesterday. It never goes away. I wrote this when I went back to Vietnam. The taxi weaved its way from the airport, threading through the tangled maze of the city. A park came into view, striking a chord of familiarity. I leaned forward and asked the Grab driver, "Isn't that the former McDinchie Cemetery?" "Yes," he replied. "It was razed years ago and was turned into a park." The memory came rushing back. I recognized that that park was the old cemetery where my family was buried. I barely remember what happened that day. I was like a zombie. I don't even feel pain at that point. I'm just lost. My guilt is I'm the one who caused it all, because I bring bad luck to the family. I still regret it to this day. Guilt that I survived. I feel like God is punishing me. I wish that I could be with them. I wish that all the time.
My parents' restaurant was right here with this door. There was no door here. That was the front, and that's the mall entrance. My parents were working 7 days a week for several years. There were all these extracurricular activities through high school that I didn't belong to because I had to go home and work at a restaurant. And so that became our lives. Life was difficult enough, trying to make a living without having to deal with this extra stress of the deportation hearings. I was angry that this is happening to my dad and to our family. To send him back would be to essentially send him to be killed. I remember seeing graffiti a lot in the restrooms. 4-letter words. And my dad described as a war criminal. It made me make a resolve to work hard, to not have to deal with all that. I got accepted to UVA, but my dad got sick, and I told him maybe I should stay and help. My dad said, no way. We were refugees, and he knew that the only way that we could dig ourselves out of this poverty that we were in is for us kids to get an education. I felt very relieved when President Carter decided that the whole deportation issue should be dropped. When I went to college, I could leave all of that behind. Escaping being the daughter of General Wang and be my own person.
Không những là quan niệm của người Việt Nam, cái quan niệm của trong một cái gia đình người Việt thì cái sự hy sinh mất mát nó rất là đau buồn. Nhưng mà đau buồn hơn nữa là không có tìm được một cái xác, một cái hài cốt rất là quan trọng với gia đình. Do đó đến thời điểm hiện tại là gần 60 năm rồi không có tìm được cái hài cốt của ba.
Không có xác của ba, chỉ là cái mộ của ông thôi. Mỗi lần con cái nhớ ba quá thì cũng lên trên đó ngồi mà tâm sự với ba, mình thực tế là biết ở trong đó không có xác của ba.
Không riêng gì, rất là nhiều người Việt Nam mong muốn khi mà cái người thân của mình mất đi thì phải tìm được cái hài cốt để về. Cho dù cái hài cốt nó không còn nguyên vẹn, cho dù cái hài cốt đó chỉ còn lại là một cái nắm xương tàn thôi.
This is always a quest for me, trying to piece together my life with them, how it was. I feel there's no justice in the world. Sure, the execution is very, very traumatic. This is just one single act of atrocity. It captures your attention. But the true casualties of war here are the women and the children. At least 15,000 civilian deaths happened during that time. The picture that Eddie Adams took changed the course of the war. It changed the perception of the war.
Radicals shouted support for the Viet Cong.
But if you compare the two, right, one between the two combatants on the field, despite the Viet Cong wearing civilian clothing, and the photo of my whole family that was massacred, which one is more atrocious? And why is it that that's not the frontline picture? I think that the public opinion will be different then.
Mình tự hào vì có người cha tham gia để giải phóng dân tộc. Sau khi hy sinh đó, thì ba được nhà nước Việt Nam phong tặng danh hiệu anh hùng lực lượng vũ trang.
Vào 30 tháng 4 thì bên Việt Nam này có chiếu lên cái hình ảnh, và cái hình ảnh đó là hình ảnh của cha đó. Thì chỉ nằm dòm và khóc thôi. Nếu như không có chiến tranh thì gia đình tôi đâu có như vậy.
The picture is a picture, but it doesn't tell the entire story. The picture doesn't show what happened before the photo. The picture doesn't show that this guy
has been going through town, ordering people killed, killing people. Until you are a soldier, you cannot understand how they react to things. And I can imagine my dad standing right there, seeing it, just how it would have affected him. You do not have their experiences with war.
I don't know what I would do. I hope that I would be able to have that discipline to not shoot the guy.
Giá như tướng Loan chậm lại một chút xíu thôi, 5-10 giây thôi, thì cơ hội sống của ba tôi rất là cao.
If you tell me, identify him as the person that killed my family, I would say that I cannot testify to that fact. I can't see his face. I'm speaking from a 9-year-old perspective. I don't remember.
Even though I look at the picture and I see the horror in it, I don't see my dad as the person in the picture. I see him as an entire person with all the experience I had with him. So I don't question what he did.
I have so much connection to this place. It's a place of reflection. Speak to me from a connection to the old country, from a perspective of my new adopted home. I was lucky enough to be able to come here to America as refugees. That doesn't happen all the time to everyone. We became part of this American fabric that we are building it today. Joining the Navy is because I want to repay that debt. I always wanted to continue my father's legacy, to do the thing that my family would be proud of me.
It is a great honor to attain the rank of Admiral, and I'm tremendously humbled to become the first Vietnamese American to wear the flag swing in the United States Navy.
Refugees, we all go through the same steps. We all come over here, we all have to deal with all the trauma that we experience, leaving our homeland, figuring out how to fit in, whether you ever fit in. What does it mean to be Vietnamese after 50 years not visiting Vietnam? Once you become very sure of yourself, you found yourself, you can have peace and be able to say, even though I am an American, I'm a Vietnamese at heart.
And when the Vietnamese diaspora, they lost the war, they came here, they never had a chance to have closure.
Rất là nhiều người gia đình không có chiến sĩ của Việt Nam Cộng Hòa đã hy sinh trong suốt cuộc chiến 20 năm mà bây giờ vẫn còn khổ, vẫn còn nấm mồ chưa kín nấm mồ được.
You still see the trauma of war on both sides. And so, how do we move forward together?
Nhưng mà bây giờ 50 năm rồi, cuộc chiến bây giờ nó là 50 năm rồi. Chúng ta bây giờ sang một cái trang mới để cho thế hệ con của chúng ta Chúng ta nên khép lại hết tất cả những cái quá khứ. Chúng ta phải sang một trang mới. Cái trang mới này chắc chắn sẽ tốt đẹp hơn.
Before, I was very adamant about not going back to Vietnam because I felt that I would be dishonoring my dad by going back when he spent all his life fighting against communism and protecting his country. But now, I've made peace with the fact that Vietnam is no longer the Vietnam that I grew up in. My kids want to see Vietnam, where their parents came from. They've grown up with the Vietnamese culture. They want to know their roots. And I think that I should not prevent that from happening.
Why I survive? Why me? That question always gnawed at me. I want that 9 years old little boy to move on and achieve greater things. When I first came to the US, that's the first time I experienced peace. And I'm wishing for peace around the world. The Vietnamese would say, đất lành chim đậu. It means that where you have a blessed place, birds will stay there, right? Will be there.